Star Wars, a multi-decade long extravaganza of entertainment. Happy Star Wars Day, everyone, and welcome to my ranking of the episode films of Star Wars. Now, let me explain my rules here. Number one, I'm only looking at the episode films of Star Wars. So I will not be looking at the Clone Wars film, I will not be looking at Rogue One, and I will not be looking at Solo. I'll be looking at Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. And remember, this is my own opinion, so don't send hateful comments down below. I mean, send positive critiques. Hey, that's okay. Just, don't be stupid. Don't send stupid threats. Okay? Let's get into it. At number 9, probably expected at this point, number 9 for me is The Last Jedi. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't hate this film. I've come to accept it. But this film just leaves a bad taste. I mean, it's not because Leia uses Force powers, because I was waiting for that to actually happen. So it was good that we finally got that. However, it just feels weird, the film. And especially with some of the decisions. Now, don't get me wrong, Poe defying orders is kind of cool, and the holdover maneuver is amazing. I love that part of the film. But what I don't like is a lot of the other decisions. I just feel like a lot more of it could have been fleshed out. But in reality, I think Johnson tried his best, but he kind of failed. So, I'm going to shut up about Last Jedi. Let's move on. At number 8, we have Attack of the Clones. Now, I have mixed feelings about Attack of the Clones. On one hand, it's just this weird drama with an awkward-ish romance subplot. Now, don't get me wrong, Hayden and Natalie did an amazing job in this movie. But on the other hand, there's so much to like about Attack of the Clones. One thing that lifts Attack of the Clones above Last Jedi is the Battle of Geonosis. Especially the part in the arena where all the Jedi are fighting against those droids. Oh my goodness, that is fanboy approval right there. Fanboy excitement. But really, the romance plot just kind of felt a bit forced. It's more natural in Revenge of the Sith, especially in the Clone Wars TV show and the film. So, I'm just going to shut up about it and move on. At number 7 is The Phantom Menace. Now, I loved this movie as a kid. Nowadays, not really. What's really dragged this movie down for me is a lot of the fluff. Like, a lot of the things that were kind of annoying at first, but now I kind of understand. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, the midichlorians are bad. It's kind of a bit more of a scientific look at the Force. So, say the midichlorians are basically like the mitochondria in our cells. However, it's just, I don't really like this movie because the blockade just seems stupid. And all to overthrow the Chancellor? What? That part just escapes my thoughts. So, that part is no. But what I do love especially is the fight between Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon. That is my favorite part of the movie. And Anakin flying. That is an amazing part. But in the end, I think Phantom Menace deserves a number 7 spot on my list. Coming in at number 6, and I know some people are already typing their dumb comments, it's The Force Awakens. Now, I know what you're all going to say. What? The Force Awakens is worse than The Rise of Skywalker? Blasphemy! It is. If you rewatch The Force Awakens, it's easy to see that it's just a kind of recoded paint of A New Hope. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing. It's good, kind of good to play off nostalgia, but also introduce new stuff, and that's something the film does really well, but at the same time, it just feels off for a Star Wars film. But it is an interesting concept. Now, I do love the character that they introduced the character of Rey, and all the new characters I absolutely love. And I love how they brought back some of the old characters. But there are a few scenes that really kind of break it for me. Like, for example, the whole fight scene on Jakku, that just feels weird. Like, I understand the First Order was looking for BB-8, but still, it just felt weird. And then, of course, the whole fight on Takodana, that part just, I was like, what? Really? You're just gonna invade that? Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't mind the whole Star Killer base thing. I thought it was a good idea. I mean, hey, some things do work. And I did kind of like how they showed the power of the super weapon by destroying the Hosnian system. But in the end, I think The Force Awakens could have used a bit more time in the oven. Okay, this one is going to piss you all off. At number 5, we have Empire Strikes Back. I know a lot of Star Wars fans are cringing at me right now, because I just said that the fan-favorite Star Wars film is worse than The Rise of Skywalker. And that's the truth. I mean, don't get me wrong. Empire is amazing. Introduced a lot of new places. Hoth, Bespin, Cloud City. So much new. But also it just feels kind of weird, like the iffy decisions. Like, a perfect example for me is when the Rebel says that Han's Tauntaun will freeze before it reaches the first marker, when Han goes looking for Luke, and then Han says, I'll see you in hell. That would require hell freezing over, and that's probably just me nitpicking. But really, what kind of drags this part down for me is, like, the whole asteroid aspect. Like, I'm kind of used to the Falcon just getting away quickly. Now, don't get me wrong. It's okay that it's in constant need of repair. But sometimes it just feels kind of forced. And also the romance subplot, and this one a bit more developed than in Attack of the Clones, but still kind of weird. Like, especially since Carrie kissed Luke. Well, Carrie kissed Mark. Leia kissed Luke. Well, that was before they were revealed to be siblings, but in the end, I think that Empire is just a perfect middle-of-the-road Star Wars film. But there were a lot of good things that came out of Empire, including James Earl Jones as Vader. So, I'm going to move on before you will all throw pitchforks at me. At number 4, we have Rise of Skywalker. Now, I know a lot of you probably hate this movie, and I thought this movie was mediocre when I first watched it. But over time, when thinking about it, I've come to realize that this movie is really, really good. My main problem with the sequel trilogy is how they relied so heavily on books. Like, just show us that stuff in the movies! Like, and that's one thing that I had a problem with, especially in The Rise of Skywalker. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm okay with Palpatine returning, because it kind of goes off what George said in the beginning. It's like poetry, it rhymes. I have no problem with Ben dying. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with Ben returning to the light side. That part was actually one of my favorite parts, especially the cameo by Harrison Ford. I loved the Babu Frick character. That was so awesome. But I especially love the final battle, how Lando brought back Wedge, and just it felt so amazing. Especially the part where Rey's like all the Jedi. Now I do have a few critiques about that. I honestly think it would have been better if we saw the Force ghosts of all of the Jedi past. Now I know that would be a practical nightmare, but that would be cool though. Like seeing Luke, not only Luke and Leia, but like Anakin, Obi-Wan, both versions of Obi-Wan, kind of like Ewan McGregor, and I don't know who played Obi-Wan in the original film. But also, it would have been cool to see like Kanan in live action and Ahsoka in live action, which we might get with the Mandalorian season 2. But honestly, I like the Rise of Skywalker. It's just not a top 3 for me. Okay, now I'm probably pissing you all off even more. At number 3, we have the original Star Wars. Now, don't get me wrong, I love this film. This is the film that gave us Star Wars. But at the same time, this film has its share of flaws. Don't get me wrong, George admitted he's not the best with dialogue. And things just feel weird. In my opinion, the two films that come higher on this list had everything kind of planned out, and everything was really more smooth in those films. Well, you'll see. But really, I love the original Star Wars. It's just I just put it at number 3 because I love the two films above it more. At number 2, we have Revenge of the Sith. How do I begin on talking about Revenge of the Sith? Well, I guess the negatives. The dialogue. It's a problem with the prequels. The dialogue is kind of shitty. But, like I mentioned earlier, George admitted he's not good with dialogue. But at the same time, this movie is amazing. The character development is better in this film than all of the prequels. And in my opinion, Revenge of the Sith is not only the best of the prequels, not because of the dialogue, but because of the action. We see so much happen. We see the fall of the Jedi with Order 66. We see Anakin's turn to the dark side. We see the epic fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar. That is one of my favorite lightsaber duels of all time. Holy shit, that was an amazing duel. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie has its flaws, but in my opinion, this is the second best Star Wars film ever. Let's move on to number 1. By process of elimination, you probably know what number 1 is, but I'll just explain. At number 1, we have Return of the Jedi. Where do I begin on this masterpiece? Now, I get it. A lot of you are probably saying that Empire is way better, and that Jedi is only good because of the things set up in A New Hope and Empire. Now, that can be a valid criticism, but in my opinion, A New Hope was kinda a bit of a puzzle, and then Empire put in more pieces, and yes, sure, Jedi brought in more pieces, but it also is a completed puzzle. So we have the completed puzzle, and yes, I'm okay with the second Death Star. The Battle of Endor is one of my favorite battles in all of the Star Wars universe, in all of Star Wars canon, and no, I'm not talking about Legends, because this is canon, but this movie, in my opinion, is the best of Star Wars, because everything just feels right. Now, it does have a slow beginning, but don't get me wrong, that's kinda deserved. We still get new-ish places. We kind of go back to Tatooine, but we get Jabba's palace. We get the second Death Star, and we get the force-moved Endor. And, of course, the space battle of Endor was amazing. Seeing the whole ideas of the rebellion really show. And everything feels right in Return of the Jedi. And of course, the dialogue is on point. But really, what sets Return of the Jedi above all the other Star Wars films, in my opinion, is its sense of completion. Now, sure, Rise of Skywalker kind of has that, but also it just kind of feels optimistic, like looking towards the future. I wonder what Disney's going to do next with Rey and the rest of the Resistance characters. Now, I don't want those stories right away. Give her some time, Disney! But everything just feels like a perfect finale in Return of the Jedi. So, that's my opinion. But I'm sure all of you will disagree. So, if any of you disagree with my list, which is probably a lot of you, let me know in the comments down below. Please don't rip me a new asshole for that, because, let's be honest, this is my opinion. So, thank you all for watching. Peace out. Bye-bye.